like PSU, UV in Spain, and GEI in Germany. Dr. Walker has the PhD in Applied Linguistics from Center of Applied Language Studies in University of Jyväskylä, Finland. His area research interests include critical discourse studies, multimodality, critical textbook studies, and critical pedagogy. He has published his work in several peer-reviewed journals. He has held several international research mobilities, including at Penn State University, Ecker Institute in Germany, and University of Valencia in Spain, and the Center of Discourse Study in Spain. He is currently working as a lecturer at Mehran University of Engineering and Technology in Pakistan. Okay, so nice to meet you today. And the session today, Dr. Wakar going to share with us in the session, which focuses on the following themes: the types of article, manuscripts, for example, original research papers, systematic review papers, theoretical papers, methodological papers, and article writing, like process and considerations. It's about ethical, responsible research practices. And then types of journal and identifying potential journals for publishing articles. Later, preparing a manuscript, and last with publishing process. So everyone, so let's join with Dr. Shah and welcome him. Before Dr. Walker talks his session, everyone, if you have any question while his talk, please wait in at the end of the session when he finished his session. And I think this is a good time to answer any question from you. So if you have any question you want to ask, you can write down in the message. So that helps him and I can support the answer for you. Okay, that's it. So Dr. Wakar, welcome you.
Yes, thank you very much, Tran, for your introduction. And before I start, I would like to thank Idam Parvez for inviting me, and also University of Science Malaysia for this opportunity to interact with you all. So yes, today's session or webinar is about manuscripts, and especially I chose this title, Behind the Manuscript, because I believe as a young researcher that there are like very genuine and real concerns with the academic publishing, and many young researchers, especially in global South particularly, they face many challenges about publishing. So therefore, I thought to discuss what early career researchers need to know about academic publishing. So of course, within that, I have focused on a few important issues that we can actually talk today in our session. And then I will definitely welcome the questions from the audience. So what we are going to cover in this particular session, for example, I wanted to discuss about the different kinds of articles that we should know as researchers in academia, especially when we are doing research in the field of applied linguistics, that we must know different categories or different genres of academic writing. And then we have this academic article writing, what the process and consideration. And then, of course, there are some ethical and responsible research practices. And then the major issue that we face is about identifying the potential journals for our articles. So how can we identify those journals where we can submit our papers? And then lastly, I will be talking about this preparing a manuscript and what is the publishing process. So these are the few important points in our webinar today, and I will talk about them one by one. So starting with this very first category, first issue, there's the types of articles. Many of the young researchers, like maybe in the field of applied linguistics or education or the social sciences, need to know that when we are thinking about writing articles, we always need to understand that articles are of different kinds. For example, there are some original research articles, and these original research articles are basically, they are the research oriented, they are empirical evidence, always given in these kind of articles. And then we have this review papers. I will talk about them in detail. And then we have theoretical articles and then methodological articles. So of course, article writing falls under these four broader categories. So we have to think about doing empirical research, and people write review papers, and within review papers we have different categories, and then we have this theoretical and then methodological issues or papers. So for example, if we talk about this original research articles, so why do we name it as original research articles? Because they are basically based on empirical insights, empirical evidence. For example, whenever we conduct any kind of empirical research by collecting data, by engaging with the participants, by through field notes, through interviews, through surveys. So we have like a different kind of empirical tools that we actually use to gather data. And this kind of research is more like called original research because we do not only theorize something, but we based on theories, based on certain methodologies, we are actually engaging with some empirical context. And therefore, this kind of research is more called like original research article. And they make a great significant contribution to the knowledge base in particular field. And they are also like, as I mentioned here, they are replication studies too, and empirical research. And then within that, of course, we have different kinds of research, right? Like we have a qualitative research, we have a quantitative, or the mixed meta studies. And this research is something which has not been published before. And it's, of course, a very new and very novel research that we are conducting and we want to publish it. For example, I have given here one of my own studies recently, like as a part of my own PhD. For example, I worked on the English language textbooks in Pakistan, and I try to understand how the concept of nation, otherization, and competing discourses actually operate within the discourses and semiotics of the textbooks. So this was kind of original research where I use a certain theory, certain methodology, like critical discourse studies. And of course, by drawing on different theoretical frameworks, I gathered real data. So when you are gathering real data and engaging in some kind of theory and methodology, and you bring new empirical insights into the knowledge, that's called actually original research article. So of course, and this is a very common category, and most of the novice researchers and young researchers, they often engage in this kind of genre, and they do like empirical research more often. And then we have a second category of research papers, which is known as review papers. And within review papers, like when we are exploring literature, you will find out like there are different categories of review papers. For example, there are systematic reviews, there are meta-analysis, and there are scoping reviews. And these kind of papers are review papers. They are actually written by leaders in a particular discipline. So you will always find out there are some leading scholars in our field, and they try to actually synthesize overall development within the field. So what does happen in a particular field, and what are the developments, what are the limitations, what are the research future directions. So as a leading scholar, people actually come up with a synthetic approach to understand the knowledge, how and where the knowledge is going particularly. So this is like systematic reviews, and for example, recently, like when I'm talking about the textbook studies, like textbooks have been studied by different scholars in different contexts using different theoretical frameworks, different methodologies. Then, of course, for example, if I want to write a systematic review paper, then definitely I need to like take into account, for example, let's say over last 2 decades, for example, what kind of research has been conducted on textbooks? What are the dominant themes that have been focused there? What are the dominant theoretical frameworks used in doing research on textbook studies, for example? What are the dominant methodologies that have been actually employed in understanding the textual discourses? So this is how the leading scholars are those who are well aware of the field. They try to bring a synthesis of the knowledge being there. And of course, systematic reviews are very, very technical kind of papers where uh, there are always certain guidelines developed by different organizations globally. For example, one of the method is Prisma guidelines. So for example, when you look at the Prisma guideline, they suggest to you how literature review is done or how systematic review is particularly written. So we can always refer to this Prisma guidelines to understand the scoping reviews or meta-analysis or systematic review there. And that's very important genre. And especially I believe that this is one of the are maybe widely read and highly cited paper because we want to familiarize ourselves with the developments within a particular field. And therefore, we read these kind of papers to understand the knowledge in a particular direction. And then we have this third category of research articles, which is known as theoretical articles. So what is the function or what is the ultimate goal of theoretical article? Basically, it is about advancing a theory. We don't collect empirical data, and we don't actually uh, conduct research in true spirit the way we do empirical studies, but basically we try to engage with the theory in theoretical articles. And we try to advance it. We try to maybe understand the limitation of already existing theories in our field, for example, in the field of applied linguistics. Like I can give you my example here. Like I have been doing research in the field of critical discourse studies. And when I was trying to understand the feminist discourses in CDS, then I realized that most of the research in CDS has been conducted from the Western perspectives. And of course, Global North is very dominant in CDS because CDS started in 1990s. And of course, there were the white scholars and there were little feminist voice in there. So I tried to diversify the critical discourse studies from a theoretical perspective by using a Southern perspective. For example, let's say Muslim feminist perspective or decolonial feminism or other kind of situated feminist thinking, which reflect our own ontological and epistemological conditions. So, of course, theoretical articles are very well informed, and we write to advanced theory. We write to engage with already existing theories. We try to be critically reflexive of what knowledge or what theoretical knowledge already exists in our field, so that we should diversify theory itself, because theory sometimes is very hegemonic, because we have this global south and global north. So global northern theory is often shaping the discourses and overall ideologies in our field, like applied linguistics. Therefore, we need to diversify. We need to rethink applied linguistics from the global south perspective, and therefore there are many scholars from the global south today who are trying to southernising this particular field. For example, Senpri Mekoni, Lester Panikuk, Suresh Kanagarja, a number of scholars, like emerging scholars today, they are diversifying this field from the global south. So theoretical papers are very important, and they are crucial in our field. And then the fourth category of articles is methodological article. And of course, you might know about many research handbooks are published and many research journals are there. For example, we have many journals on applied linguistics that merely focus on methodological literature. So of course, people are coming up with methodological articles to introduce new methods in the field of applied linguistics. They try to aid more to the already existing methods or methodologies. For example, if we think about methodology from decolonial perspective, let's say, of course, decolonial scholars, they are trying to bring new methods in our field, in education and social sciences and humanities, because methods also have their own philosophical standing or philosophical assumptions, and therefore methods cannot be always fixed. For example, what methods actually were introduced maybe some 30 or 40 years ago in applied linguistics, and today when we compare them with what is happening today, the things have changed. Look at, for example, maybe some time ago, the concept of autoethnography was very less common in the field of applied linguistics, but today people are using autoethnography and its various types like decoethnography and trio and collaborative and decolonial autoethnography excessively. And maybe in the past, like 3 or 4 decades ago, this kind of methodology was considered very biased or very personal. But now people are using personal as a kind of data and personal as a kind of a methodology to reflect on their own subjectivities, to reflect on their own experiences, to understand the social structure, to understand the operation, to understand social injustices or a kind of the epistemic violences. So methodologies keep growing. And therefore, we as scholars, we as researchers, we as students always need to familiarize ourselves with the current and contemporary methodological literature as well, alongside theoretical, empirical, and systematic reviews. So these 4 types of the articles are very important that we should keep reading with the time. And in addition to that, you will also find out there are different kinds of other texts which also appear in research journals. For example, you will see that there are brief reports or communications or letters which are also published in research journals. They are short perspectives by different scholars, or opinion pieces, or even forums. Like in many journals, Applied Linguistic Journal, TESOL Quarterly, or other kind of journals, you will always find out this forum. Like they're very short, 3,000 to 4,000 words forum pieces there, or even perspective, like 1,200 words perspectives there, or opinion pieces, 1,000 words. So of course, whenever we are reading about literature, it's not about reading only articles, empirical articles, but we can always refer to different kinds of articles or different genres. So that includes also like forums, opinion pieces, short commentaries, discussion papers, perspectives, because they also constitute a significant part of our literature that we are actually conducting, or we are doing, or carrying out as part of our research. So, of course, whenever you start searching on any website of a research journal, you will find out these different categories there, and you can even publish your own different perspectives and opinion pieces or forums in different journals. This was the like first part that I discussed, that we must familiarize ourselves with different kinds of article there. And then now, what is the like process for the article writing, and what are the some of the basic consideration that we should always like consider? For example, the first thing that I always think as a researcher or as a teacher, for example, when I am teaching in my own classes, I always try to introduce different kinds of formats for the layouts for the research papers. For example, many students or many researchers, they struggle with headings or subheadings. For example, they try to understand what is the structure of the article, what the structure or layout of the paper. So this all needs to be situated within the broader theoretical debates. For example, as researchers, we are familiar with positivism, for example. Positivism as a paradigm, as a theoretical lens, we know that it has influenced social sciences, it has influenced applied linguistics, and it has influenced our academic writing as well. And of course, positivism treats writing as a mechanical process, and it is something where we talk about some facts and figures. We talk about kind of conducting experiments and research, because positivism has its roots in the natural sciences, basically. And from there, we see that it has influenced social sciences and humanities. And from there on, we will see that even the kind of academic writing and the structure that we do in natural sciences, that also reflects back in the social sciences too. And this is where you will find out most of the thesis, most of the research papers that we do at the universities, we do maybe for some journals, they always follow certain patterns, certain structure. For example, the dominant structure is IMRD. That is what, like, we always begin with introduction, and then we write methodology, and then results and discussion. And this is some of the dominant structure of the paper that, and thesis even, that is actually followed. And it is mostly like followed in the quantitative studies, because quantitative studies are like highly influenced by positivism, and therefore positivism like shapes our academic writing norms too. So therefore, IMRD is a very dominant paradigm or structure of the paper that is being followed. But currently, in the maybe the last 2 decades, you will see that there's a shift in academic writing now. And there are like multiple different structures that have been introduced in academic writing, and scholars are still like trying their best to diversify academic structure, academic writing structure as much as they can. And for example, you will find out other kind of layout. For example, some people introduce introduction, literature review, method, result, and discussion. And of course, this is also one of the dominant methods that we see. So in the first category, we have introduction and method, results, and discussion. And the second structure people follow is introduction, literature review, method, result, and discussion. And then finally, we give conclusion. And then we have IM bracket and RD bracket and C. That means introduction and methodology are combined together. And then we write results and discussion together, and then conclusion is separately done. So of course, you will analyze different research papers, and you will find this kind of structure there. And some scholars, like, they choose to write introduction, methodology, results, discussion, and conclusion. And then we still have a more structure that is introduction, literature review, methodology, results, discussion, and conclusion. So it's all about the researcher, the scholars, how they actually prefer to write. And if they are like more into quantitative research, then of course they think accordingly, and their structure is shaped accordingly. For example, some people write results and discussion together in their papers and their thesis. And some people write down introduction, literature review together. And some people try to separate them. So like we don't have a one fixed methodology or structure for the academic writing. So we have to be flexible enough. And this is something that I have pointed out to maybe in quantitative research or quantitative empirical studies. But when we talk about qualitative studies, then I must tell you one thing, that qualitative research is very flexible in terms of headings, in terms of sections, what you are thinking of, and even in dissertation, even in the articles. For example, if you start downloading some qualitative studies from some well-known journals, then you won't find, for example, the heading of literature review there. You won't find heading of this particular the way we have discussed here. So you will always find out introduction, and different thematic headings are being introduced by the authors. And even sometimes introduction itself is like modified, revised, and people try to come up with new, different thematic or conceptual headings even in the introduction section. So headings and subheadings, they are always up to the researcher, up to the writer, up to the author himself or herself, how we are coming up and how we are being innovative about our own research. So we don't have to we don't have to fix academic writing norm. Academic writing has evolved over time. And therefore, if we treat academic writing as such in terms of like a fixed norm, influenced by positivism, influenced by natural sciences, then we might lose so much of innovation, so much of creativity, so much of novel ideas and thinking that we want to do with our writing. So writing should always be an innovative process, and therefore it should, like in my own research, in my own academic writing, I always try to experiment like new kind of, even currently I have been writing some autoethnography. So like in one of autoethnography, I didn't choose this word introduction. I started with one heading there. And then, of course, then the rest of the headings followed the same pattern, the conceptual or thematic headings. So, and in conclusion, even you can write down different words like critical summation, or final remarks. So, like we can always rephrase them. Now, when you want to begin writing, and especially writing is a very difficult process, and it takes like a lot of time for a writer to like brainstorm and to think and to be able to write or feel confident before they write. So I always believe, like based on my own experiences, like how can we be a good writer? Like to me as a researcher, I believe that thorough reading is very important. Like some researchers, they only do active readings. They only read maybe a few sections of the paper. They read abstracts, they read maybe introduction or conclusion, and they don't actually read the whole paper. Like for me, it's always important that I always understand, I always read the complete paper. And when you read the whole paper thoroughly, you actually get to know so many things about what author has done in the research. For example, you will see how introductions have been written, what arguments have been actually developed in the study, and what are the like methodological strategies or techniques which have been implied, and how the findings have emerged, and how these findings have been written. For example, how the theory has been integrated in the findings. So thorough reading is very important, whether it's a book reading, it's a article reading, or whatever genre you're reading. So we should not like be selective in terms of reading. And secondly, we have to read relevant and credible research. To publish in good journals, to publish in peer-reviewed journals, I always emphasize in my lectures and sessions that we must read credible literature. And by credible literature, I mean we should read something which is published in the peer-reviewed journals. So we don't have to read anything which is available on the internet, because the internet is full of information, full of literature. So all knowledge available on the internet is not credible. And there are so many journals today globally which are publishing knowledge without peer review, without quality check. And when you are reading such kind of content, you will fail to like develop your own clarity and maybe a clear thought about what you want to do and how you want to do it. So it's always important that we should read credible knowledge and credible literature published in some known journals. And of course, we will talk about it. What are the known journals? And then third thing, for example, my own student asked me, sir, we are reading a lot, but we actually forget when we write what should we cite and what should we actually bring in our arguments. So for that, note taking is very important. You should always keep a journal. You should always even prepare these notes in maybe virtually by using Excel sheet or any other kind of document where you can take notes from what you are reading, maybe some important quotations from the papers you have read, from books you have read, and even alongside page numbers, because they will help you in the future to cite them and to give the references along with the page numbers and year and everything. So you won't forget when you have like taken notes. So read one paper, take notes, and then start another paper and take notes. This is how you can actually develop your rapport with the reading. And then talk about your research before writing about it. Many people, maybe when you're reading something and you start writing, maybe you still lack clarity. But when you start talking about your research with some other senior uh, researchers, you might get like something as a result of discussion with them. So discussion is always very important, and dialogue is very important in research. And maybe with your supervisors, and maybe with your colleagues, maybe with your friends, or other people who have like who know about your topic that they have read. So when you discuss with them, you might like come up with something that you have missed in your reading, or maybe you have misunderstood in your reading. But through dialogue and discussion, you can actually clear that. And afterwards, I believe that when you start writing, of course, you cannot write uh, maybe the full paper in one day or in 1 week or in 1 month. You might start from some basic steps, and maybe writing. Maybe you have to set your realistic goals. Like I have written, maybe I can start writing 300 to 400 words every day. So maybe these 300 to 400 words every day can help me to prepare one complete abstract in 1 month, along with the revision and everything. But maybe somebody still struggles, and you can maybe focus on writing 100 words or 200 words, because writing one thought, like a meaningful thought, takes time, and it requires like reading, your own thinking, your observations. A lot of things are involved there. And then in writing, we don't have to only cite, of course. We have to develop a very coherent research story. For example, if I want to do a research on a particular issue, then maybe I can connect it with my own personal story, or maybe I can connect with the academic story or professional story. There should be a kind of coherent story in your paper, like why you chose to study this particular topic. There should be a kind of motivation that should be reflected back in your paper in the introduction section. And then you can connect it with the literature, and then your current objectives, and then why you want to do research. So this is like, there are a few things that you should keep in mind. Like, so there's always some motivation that is there in our mind. And then you write the first draft, your main ideas quickly, and then you spend a lot of time on revision. Of course, your first draft is never a good draft. Our first draft is always very raw, and it needs a lot of revision. Even for example, if I take my own example, I never like believe in my first draft, because I know that this is my first draft, and this might go through a lot of revisions. And even when I have written so many words, then there's a time like I need to cut them down. Like I need to like maybe filter out, so that I should come up with the best idea and the best language and the best content that I can give it to the reader. So therefore, the next point I have written is cut ruthlessly. Like we don't have to become very much attached to our own words. Sometimes when we write words and we become attached to them, and we feel that I should not cut them down, but sometimes we have to be ruthless, unkind to the words. And of course, we need to think about the reader. For example, if I'm thinking about my audience, I'm readership, then I have to give them something which they can understand, which they can like connect with. It's not like about maybe I have some heavy thought and I just want to put it down in my paper. But what if the audience, the reader, they might not be able to understand it? And once you're done with that, the last point is always very important. Find a good editor to help you with editing process. And if you don't have like a good editor, then you might have like many online tools. There are many editing, paraphrasing tools or editing tools. They have a subscription. For example, Grammarly, and then WordTune, lots of other. And now many people are also using ChatGPT for the sake of language editing. So maybe when you are using language, ChatGPT ethically and responsibly for the sake of language editing, then you can do it. But again, we have to check with the general guidelines, our university instructions, to what extent they allow the ChatGPT for the language editing purpose. So otherwise, I believe like in my own career, I have also used several like editing tools like WordTune and maybe Grammarly. I'm not like I haven't used Grammarly, but people are using Grammarly as well. Even Quillbolt, I can suggest you in the end, maybe if you want. And of course, when you want to write something, I always believe that before conducting research, before you're writing something, at least in our career, we should read one good book for academic writing. And for example, I suggest these two resources to my students and to my friends. For example, academic writing for graduate students is by John Swales and Feek. This is very a seminal book, I would say, and it actually contains about knowledge about how academic articles are written and how different sections within the academic articles. For example, how can we write introduction? How can we write meaningful or effective introduction in our paper? How can we write our literature review? And how can we write methodology section? So on different sections, this book will provide you different kind of insights and the guidelines that you can actually use. And even it will help you about references, will help you about the academic writing, and grammatical norms that are important for academic writing. So a number of things that will be very helpful to you. But apart from that, since these are written by the scholars of the global north, we also need to engage with the scholars on academic writing from the global south too. And I refer to Suresh Kanagaraja. And Suresh Kanagaraja had written this wonderful book on geopolitics of academic writing, and it was published in 2002. And and this book basically shows the inequalities and injustices in academic writing when we compare the global south to the global north, and how academic writing, the way it has been introduced in the global north, it tries to reinforce some standard English ideologies where there are some racial linguistic biases which are reinforced there, perpetuated there, and therefore we don't have to just fix academic writing norm, and we have to diversify academic writing by bringing literacy practices, by bringing knowledge, by bringing writing practices from the global south as well, because global south is very diverse. We have this African tradition, South Asian, from the Middle East, from Malaysia, from Singapore. And of course, people are like, they have different literacy practices, and these literacy practices would they always have impact on our academic writing. Like, for example, the way we start writing, maybe we bring more poetic voice in academic writing, but the kind of academic writing that comes from the global north, that is more like scientific and mechanical, and that's very much like focused on the standard use of English, for example. But whereas we talk about academic writing from the global south, we can use multilingual, maybe multilingualism as such. For example, sometime bringing multilingualism in academic writing, or bringing like translanguaging, let's say, diversifying or enhancing academic writing through translanguaging, through multimodality, through multi-literacy practices. There are multiple perspectives that can actually enhance or add more insights to academic writing. And of course, like, there's a very ongoing literature on academic writing that you can read, and you can understand this politics of academic writing itself. So how this politics of academic writing works in the global sphere, and how can we, as scholars from global south, can particularly like counter and disrupt those dominant discourses from, and how can we bring our use of English, for example, like we have Southern English today. We have this world English paradigm. We have this lingua franca English. We have translingual English. So multiple paradigms on English are emerging in the global south. So how can we bring those ideas into academic writing? So these books might be very supportive to you to understand academic writing. And then the next, I will say something about ethical and responsible research practices. And that's very important as a part of research, especially the first thing that we have to understand. For example, there's a common practice as part of our research, which is known as salami slicing. And this is a very important concept. For example, why do we fail to get published in good journals or the international peer-reviewed journals? It is because sometimes we are doing salami slicing. And salami slicing means that we, for example, if we want to write one paper, I'm sorry. For example, if I want to write a paper, this example from our thesis. For example, what we do, many scholars, many people, they write their complete thesis, they write their complete dissertation. And once they are done with complete dissertation, then they take out different papers out of that. like one paper, second, three, four. And many people actually tell us very proudly, for example, they took 7 papers from their thesis. Like this was one complete project, and then we tried to try to fragment it, try to like divide it into different pieces and write different articles based on that. That there's sometimes like a problem. Maybe it is possible that when I was writing, I could bring some more insights into my work by bringing more, maybe triangulation of methods, maybe triangulation of theory, maybe triangulation of data. What people are doing, for example, they are writing one paper based on interview and another paper based on survey data. But maybe there's a possibility when you are combining like survey data with the interview data and triangulating this, this could like bring some more thorough and more rich insights to the reader rather than like breaking them into different pieces. Yes, in some cases, it's necessary that we do salami slicing, and maybe it's appropriate in some cases when we have like longitudinal studies, for example. Sometimes you have very, let's say, you're conducting a critical ethnographic research. So maybe in ethnographic research, because your research is evolving with by interacting with the participants, and you have written one paper based on your interaction with the participants by conducting informal conversation with them, by collecting some field notes, and you wrote one paper. But maybe in second paper, you are advancing what you have done. So maybe in some kind of studies, we can always do salami slicing, but not all the time. Salami slicing, in many cases, then becomes an unethical research practice that we have to avoid. Another issue, an ethical issue that we are facing today, there's an issue with the authorship. Because currently, we are living in the publish or perish era. And many people are feeling this kind of academic pressure, neoliberal pressure, because there's a pressure on academia and there's pressure on universities and the scholars and researchers. They have to publish more and more to be like valid researcher, to be like legitimate researchers in the academia. And of course, for that, what they are doing under their pressure, they are producing more and more research. They are producing more and more articles. And this kind of trend has like increased over time. And recently we see, for example, this is one kind of picture you can see here. For example, in 2002, the kind of trend which was common, for example, one author wrote 4 papers in 1 year. And that was a common practice at that time. But you will see this trend has increased over time. For example, in 2008, in 2008, I'm sorry, there's a voice maybe from somewhere, from the participant, I guess.
Okay, I turn off the mic. Okay, it's okay, Doctor.
Okay. Right. So yes, I was talking about this, how this trend has increased. For example, in 1 year, the author could write 4 papers. But now one author, and this is taken from the Nature journal, and where they talk about how scientists publish a paper every 5 days. And this is huge. Like in 2008, one author wrote 39 papers in 1 year. And this trend rather increased more in 2016, where one author wrote 81 papers in 1 year. Now, this is like huge. And this is where this is concept of hyper prolific authors. So hyper prolific author is somebody who is writing more and more paper in 1 year. And of course, that becomes sometimes unethical, and it's very common in physics, medicine, health sciences, brain sciences, biology, and even now in social science and humanities. And even applied linguistics, you will find out one author is coming up maybe some 20, some 20, 30 papers in 1 year, maybe. So like this becomes a problem. So we don't have to just feel insecure about publishing. We don't have to feel that if we don't publish, we will perish. We can always conduct a very credible and genuine and meaningful research if we are writing 2 papers per year. If we are writing 1 paper every year and it's published in a peer-reviewed journal, I think this is more than enough. This contribution is more meaningful than having this is completely neoliberalism, where this quantification has rather become more dominant than the quality research, than this what we are contributing. And here comes one more idea connected to the previous one, that is how authors now recently under neoliberalism, they have become academic celebrities, and researchers have become entrepreneurs, because we are currently living in the era of academic capitalism. And we have this new concept of toxic university. And two scholars from Spain, Pau Bori and David Block, they wrote a very wonderful article on discursive construction of academic capitalism in higher education. So they basically tried to help us understand how academic capitalism, especially in the contemporary times, being influenced by neoliberalism, they have shaped the concept of researcher. They have shaped the concept of academic today. Academics are more like they are more like celebrities. Why? Because we want to write because we want congratulations from people. We want to celebrate, and we are writing for the celebrations. We are writing for receiving like some clips and congratulatory notes from our different virtual and the physical audience. And this is where the entire concept of research is being compromised, where we are focusing more on increasing number of publications, and we are like contributing this overall this digital environment in a space. We are creating more noise every time, like to show the world that we are like being more productive. And this concept of productivity is purely like a very like a neoliberal idea, neoliberal concept, that you are productive because you are producing more papers. So this kind of a trend or the idea is under question now, and many scholars today, they are trying to critique this idea that we don't need to like produce more, we don't need to focus more on metrification and the quantification of research, but or even the citation, for example, how scholars they think of their academic worth in terms of citation. If you have more number of citations, then you consider yourself well a renowned scholar. So this renowned scholarship should not be defined in terms of citations, because there are a number of problems with the citation, Google citation or other kind of metrics like Web of Science or maybe Scopus citations. But so we don't need to only think of academic contribution in terms of numbers or metrification, because scholars are now turning to the real impact, real life impact of research. For example, if we are conducting research, how far we are engaging with the community, to what extent we are helping transforming the communities and different kinds of issues that we are facing. So our research should connect with the communities, with the classroom, with the real problems, and to not only like just write and publish, but we need to engage in a praxis, engage in a kind of a meaningful action, and that's very important. So maybe you can read this article to understand this concept of academic capitalism and toxic university. And this is also very interesting about authorship. For example, how authorship is decided in many contexts, especially if I talk about Global South. There are different kinds of authors. One is ghost author. Like there are some people who are doing real work. There are some people who have contributed, but they are excluded from the original draft, original manuscript. Maybe there are some different professional reasons. There's kind of manipulation. There are different factors where the real authorship like gets totally missed out from the scene. So this is where we have this ghost authorship, and then we have guest authorship. Like maybe as a young researcher, what we are doing, maybe we have some of our seniors, department heads, or maybe some other people, and who we want their name, for example, to be added in our manuscript, and we then actually invite them to be co-authored in a paper or to be edited in a paper. So just because of maybe a kind of to increase our credibility in our paper. And of course, there are cultural variations. Maybe in some cultures, people don't do that. For example, I just do writing not because I need somebody else or established scholars in my paper. I should trust myself. I should write what I am doing, other than like giving like authorship to somebody only because they are the established scholars. They will be added in my name in my paper, and they will increase the worth of my paper. So I think there is also some kind of unethical practice that we need to avoid. And then we have this third category of authorship, gift authorship. So we want to gift our authorship to somebody who needs them. For example, somebody wants a promotion, somebody wants maybe some kind of academic incentives, and maybe in our friendship, maybe in our other kind of personal relations, and we are just like giving this to our different people, and that becomes a kind of a gift authorship. It's also unethical practice that we can always avoid. And then we have a ghost writer. There are many companies, there are many writers who are writing for you, and they are paid, paid writing. There's paid writing, and of course, there's very unethical, and that needs to be avoided. We need to be like real writers. We need to believe in real contributions. We need to believe in real collaborations where all co-authors engage meaningfully. And this is where this Vancouver criteria of authorship. There are many organizations, there are many academic institutes. They have developed their own guidelines about how authorship roles can be decided. Even, for example, when you are submitting your work on different journals, the journals have their authorship contribution statement. They will always ask you about, for example, if you are 3 authors, please provide the authorship contribution statement, like what first author has done, what second author has done, or third author. So we provide this authorship contribution statement to the journals, and authorship is decided based on contribution. So if I'm the first author, of course, I have more contribution. If the second author, less contribution than me, then third author, the less contribution than the third one. So this always done accordingly. So this is where, and of course, when we are doing a collaborative work, it's of course agreed by 3 or 4 authors together, and they are fully responsible for everything they have done. So whatever issues are in the paper, whatever problems exist within the academic article, and it has to be like owned by these 3 or 4 authors there together. This is like going to be the maybe last one, I think, about journals. So how to identify research journals? As a young researcher, for example, we should know that we have different kinds of journals. For example, there are some disciplinary journals in every field. For example, in education, you will find out the different journals which are purely specific to education as a field. There are journals which are purely specific to applied linguistics, purely specific to sociology. There are always some disciplinary journals, and they won't give space to other new ideas or other which actually cuts across their disciplinary boundaries. So then we have this special issues and regular, maybe themed issues journals, where editors they actually give a call for journals, a call for papers, and authors are actually contributing their papers to them. And of course, you might come across many special issue calls in different journals, and they can also be part of the disciplinary journals too. And then we have this field journals. For example, a specific field which focuses on maybe a region, a particular period, a particular genre, a particular theory, a particular methodology or theme, or even a specific author. There are very like narrowed journals. They only focus on particular theory. For example, I came across one journal which was like Foucault studies. Michel Foucault is a French philosopher. Now, there was a journal which only focused on the Foucault studies. And there was a journal, for example, it's about post-colonial theory. There are journals about maybe critical discourse studies. So they are very theory specific. They are very author specific. They are very region specific journals. So they are like very field journals. And then we have this interdisciplinary journals. Like journals are there, but they do accept authorship or contribution from cross-disciplinary or multidisciplinary scholarship. So maybe as applied linguistics, I can contribute to a journal in education because this journal is also interdisciplinary. And then we have this newer journals, very newly introduced journals, and they are also interdisciplinary, disciplinary, or even the field journals, but they are new journals. And then we have regional journals. Like you will find out journals on Middle East. You will find out journal on Eastern Europe. You will find journal on East or Asia specific journals, exactly, or Asia Pacific journals. So sometime as a researcher, when we are identifying journal, when we are looking for journals, we have to understand where do I want to send my paper? Am I sending paper for the regional specific journals? For example, I am from South Asia, and there are some TESOL journals which are Asia specific journals. I can definitely send it there. And then maybe there are journals which are focused on African studies. So some scholars who are working in Africa, maybe they want to focus on only African journals. But there are some international journals where we have international leadership. So this is always our choice to look at the scope, to look at who are the readers, where I can find more readership for my articles. And other than that, We have some local journals, of course. Every country has its own journals. And if they are peer-reviewed journals, I would recommend you must send them, because our countries also require more scholarship from our own country, so that we should also like bring some new kind of scholarship through our own research forums to counter the hegemony of academic publishing in the global north. So, but this should not be like some journals which compromise quality, which publish anything like without peer review or without quality check. And there are some new journals, but people don't prefer to send, because even though they are peer reviewed, but they don't send, because we know that people are always looking for the journals which are Scopus indexed, journals which are Web of Science indexed, and because of this indexing politics, we always like choose journals which are already established and which are like well known, are quite old journals. So like to me right now, maybe I have published more in my field, so I don't like look for the Web of Science index journals sometimes. I just look for the quality. If there are new journals and they are maintaining quality, they are like having a peer review process, a rigorous peer review process, I do send them. So then we have chapters in edited volume, but people don't like prefer to send them. But this is also very important category today, and many established scholars are sending their chapters and handbooks in encyclopedias, in the volumes, and there's of course a new genre, and like very old genre, but like it's emerging, and also like popular genre that we can consider. And then we have conference proceedings, and then we have open access, maybe e-repositories online where you can publish. So maybe I can like say one thing about it, like how to identify potential journals. Like I always say one thing here. If you want to identify a potential journal for your paper, for your manuscript, I should always say that when you are reading one paper, a peer-reviewed paper, you should always see the reference list there and see where the authors you have studied, authors you have read, where they have published. And if they are well-known authors and they are established authors and they are publishing in good journals, you can also choose those journals for you. It's also like one of the good strategy to find relevant journals for you. So always look towards what the authors, established authors or senior authors, they are publishing their work in. If they are publishing in good journals, you should look for those journals and send your paper there. There's one more category of journals here. That's known as predatory journals and publishers. As I told you, because of this academic pressure, because of this neoliberal academia, there have emerged a new concept of journals which is known as predatory. And predatory journals, they actually charge money to the authors to be able to publish their work. And of course, like authors are paying like hundreds and thousands of rupees, thousands of even dollars, hundreds of dollars to the journals just to get published. And those journals, like they charge money, they don't care about the quality check, they don't like check peer, they don't conduct a peer review for your papers. They publish your work overnight, even one week, 1 month maybe, or even fortnightly. And they even publish your work even the very previous issues of the journal or volumes. So these kind of journals are known as bogus publications, and they have no credibility. They have no worth in academia. If when you send it to some for any kind of job in the future or for your PhD admissions, they will always like question your position as a researcher. Like if you have published your work in, so predatory journal is all about like paying and then be published. So I think you should always avoid it. And I never think that as a researcher we should pay, because research is always free. Like when I talk about peer-reviewed journals, like those are published in Routledge and elsewhere, Sage, Springer, and De Gruyter, there are so many big publishers. They have like hundreds and thousands of journals, and they don't actually charge money. Basically, they don't charge money. For example, I have published like my 23rd article so far over the last 5 years, and I have not paid even a single Pakistani rupee to any journals just to get published here. I have like always been through this peer review process. I have waited for my paper, like it has taken 9 months, 10 months, even more than a year. But this has been through a rigorous peer review process. I have revised my papers, I have revised my work, and then resubmitted, and then got another round of reviews, and then like done it. So this should like be always taken into account. I also wrote one article on this predatory journals, and I focused on like Pakistan, for example. So I try to understand how scholars and researchers in Pakistan, in social sciences particularly, in different fields, how they are publishing their work. So it was very surprising that in Pakistan, like many scholars, many young researchers, many established scholars even, they are engaged in predatory and bogus publication. Like 71% of corpus, the data that we analyzed, like out of 100%, 71% of the corpus was found to be predatory. So 71% of research articles that actually were part of our data, they appear to be predatory articles. So like they only paid and they published. And it is because I told you that maybe it's because of concept of academic celebrity, or maybe this pressure of publish or perish. So we need to come out of this. And this is very important, how to publish, what's the process for that. So the first thing which is important is identify a journal. And of course, I would say it should be done before writing. For example, we should always note that, for example, if I'm writing something, for which journal I'm writing. So maybe there are a number of journals in our field. For example, if I'm doing kind of work on critical language studies, I'm doing a critical work in applied linguistics, then of course I have to identify what are the journals they accept manuscripts on critical work. Like for example, TESOL Quarterly is there, TESOL Journal is there, Applied Linguistics is there, and Critical Language Studies is there. Like number of journals are there that I always keep in mind. Okay, these are journals, and I can keep like 5 to 6 different journals as options before me when I'm writing my paper. And then I try to understand their scope. For example, I try to understand read their author guidelines. I always read author guidelines to understand the writing style, for example, what kind of references they're asking for, whether they are following APA style, they are following their own particular modified version of referencing and citation, and what is the word requirement. And this is always challenging for us as scholars, for example, to meet the word limit. If you are writing an article based on 8,500 words, and some journals are asking for 7,500 words, when you're deciding later, then it might like face a kind of problem for you. So rather than facing this problem, you might read the author guidelines of 2 or 3 journals that you are targeting as part of your for your paper. And once you know about this process, author guidelines, instruction, word limit, and everything, you have identified your journals, then of course you need to understand this submission process. And submission process always done online. So you always create your account online and then you publish it. You don't send paper through emails. You always submit your paper online through portals of the journals. And when you do it, they will always give you some kind of warrants. For example, they will ask you about authorship, who are the authors, their affiliations, and their contributions, and they will ask you about the ethics, whether you have followed, for example, or not. They will also check, for example, plagiarism. So always check plagiarism of your paper before you send it, because the first thing that the journal editors do, even not journal editors, but journal administrators do, they first check the plagiarism of your paper. And if they find AI detection, if they find plagiarism, of course, they reject it right away. They don't like entertain you further. So you have to like confirm that this should go through like plagiarism check. And then once they see that it is like very much okay in terms of plagiarism and AI detection, and they find that your paper aligning with the scope of the journal, aligning with the format of the paper of the journal and the author guidelines, then they send it to a peer review process. And of course, there are 2 peer review processes. One is internal and then external review process. So first is always the desk review. The editors, they always check different things in your paper. And if they find it suitable, then they send it to external review. And this might take time. Even for the internal review, this might take maybe sometime 1 week, sometime maybe 2 months, sometime 3 months. We never know, but we have to be very patient about it. So desk review is always the first thing. And then when they find it appropriate, then they send it out for review to 2 experts, sometime 3 or sometime 4 reviewers, and they check your paper, they read your paper and provide feedback and comments. And we should always be like very much happy about our paper being reviewed. But sometimes reviews are very good, to improve the quality of your paper, but sometimes some reviewers are not good and they don't actually provide you logical and very comprehensive or the meaningful review that actually should improve the quality of paper, but they have their own limitations. And once you get the review process, the review and feedback, then you revise and then you submit. And of course, you address reviewers' critiques point by point, and this is where you need to write down cover letter that I will talk about. And once it is accepted, then you get notification from the editor, and then they send you the proofs of your article through their system, and then you correct your article, maybe citations, maybe language editing issues, then you correct and then send it, and then it's finally published. So of course, from submitting to the review process and then to getting feedback and acceptance and then publishing, like the different stages of publishing process, and it takes time. Right? It takes time. As I told you, like average time, I would say, like based on my experience now, maybe the minimum time can be 5 months, maximum time can be like 2 years, or sometime more. So it's always like some journals are very quick. They facilitate the process. Some journals take like more time. So we have to be sometimes patient as writers. How to prepare this manuscript? I will take like maybe 10 minutes and then I will wind up. When you prepare your manuscript, remember that there are some files which are prepared. We always prepare one anonymized copy of the manuscript. You prepare the manuscript where you don't provide author details. You even don't provide your self-citation there. This is a very completely, we say the blind copy where author details are completely excluded and omitted because it goes in the peer review process. So that in peer review process, the reviewer should not know your identity. Therefore, it should always be anonymous copy. And then we provide other manuscript copy, which is known as manuscript with the author details, the second copy. And then we provide title page separately. We provide tables separately. Figures, if we have used in our papers, they are separately done. And then we also provide a submission of cover letter. We write cover letter where we discuss with the editor what we have done in our research and why our paper is important and why should it be important for the particular audience of the journal and how it contributes to overall knowledge making. So cover letter should always be very much like convincing in that sense. And this is one example of cover letter that you write and you upload this on the journal's portal. And what are the possible outcomes for a manuscript? Sometime return without a review. So there's always a desk rejection. So if editor, for example, find problem with your paper, they simply desk reject it. And desk rejection is possibly because of issues with the scope. And there are technical issues in your paper. There's a poor quality in your paper. There's a poor language in the paper. A number of multiple reasons. And sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes there can be biases too, because editors also are responsible. They are the people who shape the knowledge in the journals, and therefore maybe they don't give more space to the scholars in the global south. And people from the like America, from Europe, from maybe UK, they are like more privileged scholars, authors, and therefore this kind of racial bias, epistemological racism always exists in the academic publishing process. So we have also to be careful, but I believe it is not like all the time because currently there are serious technical problem with our manuscripts too that we need to work on, that we need to improve. And then we, once it is rejected, for example, journals recommend transfer. They send you an email that if you want to transfer this journal to another journal, they provide you multiple options. But what they do, they offer options which are paid. So I don't choose this transfer option. I choose another journal that I have already worked on. And third is maybe accepted for peer review. So they can accept it and they send it for peer review, and 2 to 3 reviewers are there. And then possible other outcomes are, for example, they can accept it in the present form. After peer review, your paper can be accepted as it is. And that's like very much, it would be very awesome if it like gets accepted and without any changes. And it is very rare. But most times what we get, our paper is accepted with the minor revisions. We do minor revisions. And then sometimes we receive major revisions in our paper. And then the last comment can be rejection, even though your paper has been reviewed. But based on the reviews that editors have received, their decision becomes reject because there are serious problems with our paper in terms of theory, in terms of data, in terms of ethics. So they can make like a reject decision on your paper too. So we have to be like very much ready for that. So if it's a revision, then what happens? You respond to reviewers' comments. You make revisions in the paper by using track changes, by using the text with color. Maybe you write that, you add the text, and then you try to basically highlight it with a different color. And then you prepare a response letter. And response letter means you try to tell the reviewer that this was a point or comment, and then in front of the comment you write down your remarks, what you have done, and you show them on page number, like let's say 6, you have revised this, and this is the text that you have revised. So you give very concrete evidence of what changes, what revisions have been made in your draft. You don't say that your paper has been revised and you haven't like used track changes, you haven't used colored text, you haven't like underlined it. So there should be like different options to show the editor and to show the reviewers that what changes you have made. And then after that, you resubmit it to the journals portal again, and then you wait. And then you wait, for example, what decision is coming. They send it to reviewers again, and if they have more comments, they give you, otherwise they accept it. So this is like everything from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Waka, for a really thorough presentation. So you can talk 90 minutes. So everyone, so if you have any question, we are waiting from you. So just please feel free to get a question for Dr. Waka. So everyone, if you had a question, you can take a message or turn on the mic to ask directly to Dr. Okay, so before everyone have a question for you, Doctor, I have a question for you that I'm trying writing my thesis. Now it's just the first session, but I'm still confused how to manage, take notes, because when I read a lot of papers, every paper I really love the way you said that we should focus on the whole paper so that we learn not only from the data, the method, but learn from the justification that the author tried to make up. So I try to do that. It takes time, and when I gather a lot of information and take notes, but when I need some to make up for my own, everything just goes everywhere. So if you have any experience and how to, and can I control and gather information more appropriately?
Yeah, I think like it's very technical, especially I believe like what I am doing as a researcher. Whenever I am reading, for example, initially I relied more on the notebooks. So I always kept a notebook, and when I finished reading the whole article, I always used like highlighters in my text, and I took those notes in my book actually, and they were always with me, and I saved them. And whenever I wanted to write down about some important topic, then of course I brought those citations and those quotations into my text. But now over the past few years, what I have done is now I have switched to some kind of Excel sheet. So within Excel sheet, for example, I always try to create some tables and some columns where, for example, I write down the paper, the title, and then take some, I just copy and paste the lines which are important for me that I want to quote in my paper, for example. Then, of course, the whole paper cannot be quoted. The whole paper cannot be like noted in the Excel sheet. So if I think there are some new concepts, some new theories, new methods, new ideas that I can actually use to integrate in my paper, then I always try to save them in the Excel sheet. And that actually is saved along with the year, author name, and the title of the paper, and then of course different sections what they have done, and along the page numbers. So I think now like I have created like a couple of Excel sheets for me and on different topics. For example, if I'm working on, let's say, decoloniality, then on decoloniality, I have a different Excel sheet. And all the literature that I am reading is saved in the Excel sheet on decoloniality. If I'm reading on, for example, feminism, then all the literature on feminism will go into one particular sheet. So I have like a number of sheets now with me. So whenever now I am writing a paper on feminism, on decoloniality, on critical discourse studies, applied linguistics, I refer to that sheet. And number of papers, number of chapters, number of books have been like quoted, have been saved there, and they prove very like a useful resource for me.
Okay, it's great. I just try to make a Google search like you mentioned, but it's not too many papers like yours. But my, I had a following question that whether we should we just take citation from the main paper, or can we use a secondary citation from the main paper? Should we record the secondary paper in the other columns of the paper?
Uh, I believe what I think, if we have the secondary resource, secondary sources available online, and if we can read them, we must read them. Yes, there are sometimes it happens. For example, there are secondary citations whose text we cannot locate on internet. For example, they are very old texts, and they have been like cited by some leading scholars in the field. If you don't have the original text of those secondary sources, then it's fine. You can always refer to secondary sources in your thesis or paper. But like many scholars today, or many research journals, they discourage for the secondary citation. They don't encourage for the secondary sources to be cited in your paper. They always prefer to go for the primary citation. So read all the papers that you are citing in the paper.
Okay, good. So that make the secondary become primary. That's the
Yeah.
point of view. So I have a question from our participant. Uh, the question from ever 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 asker. I have started my lab work, and on the other hand, I have to write a review paper. Should I take both, or should I only first focus on review paper? Okay. So what do you really mean for the question A? What is the first question? You just mentioned the second question, but I can't see the first one. I only have first. I have.
Maybe
Hello.
I can.
Hello.
Okay. Okay. You can
Yes.
talk. Yes.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
I am Simula from Pakistan. I am first semester student of MS Linguistics. So this is my first semester. I would like your suggestion that what kind of reading I should start.
Sorry, Wasim, again, what should you do?
Yeah, I'm student of first semester MS Linguistic. I'm like needers like suggestion that what should I read now like these days.
Yeah, I think it is. Uh, Give me a minute. I need to charge my laptop here quickly. Okay. Yeah. So I think reading is something very, I would say, very personal. Like it's all about your choices, all about your interest. For example, what kind of topic you want to work on. Let's say if you're more interested in exploring the field of applied linguistics in general, then of course there are a number of books and number of articles that you can read because you want to understand the field as such. So for the broader perspective of the field, there are a number of books that you can read. For example, if one understand the critical applied linguistics as a field, then I can suggest you Pennycook's work, for example. The Pennycook has done wonderful work on critical applied linguistics. Maybe the recent work, language, the critical applied linguistics, the reintroduction. So I believe that like it's all about what you want to read. If you want to work on a particular topic, for example, your interest in maybe gender ideologies, then definitely you don't need to spend more time exploring some other areas and other things. And you need to read more and more about the gender, and you need to see how gender has been studied or has been investigated in applied linguistics, and how gender has been studied in social sciences, also our humanities, so that you should be able to bring some interdisciplinary perspective into your research. So one thing you should do, like I can say here, uh, whatever you want to read, whether broader perspective about your field or the very specific perspective about your field, you should do interdisciplinary readings. interdisciplinary readings is very important. Like, don't read something only what has been done in the field of applied linguistics, but also what has been done in the field of gender studies, what has been done in the field of anthropology, what has been done in the field of sociology, for example. What are the different theories that can help us understand gender as such? So, for example, our own field, applied linguistics, now is a very filled field, I would say, a very transdisciplinary field, where we borrow theories and insights from sociology, anthropology, neuroscience, even natural sciences, computational field. So when we have like this interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary perspectives, then at least as a student of MS linguistics, I would say we should expand our epistemological lens so that we should try to reframe, re-understand the knowledge in a broader terms, not only very limited knowledge. For example, the way applied linguistics is understood in many contexts, they understand applied linguistics in the context of ELT, the SLA, second language acquisition. So applied linguistics being viewed in terms of SLA and ELT is a very narrow concept. So maybe we need to understand applied linguistics maybe as a broader project.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, Dr. Wakar, I have two questions from other participants. The first question is, what is the most common mistake you see in the structure or negative flow of papers?
Could you please repeat
What's
again?
What is the most common mistake you see in the structure or narrative flow of paper?
Narrative flow of paper. So is a participant talking particularly about any particular paper, for example, writing narrative inquiry, or are asking very generally? Maybe the writer, the speaker, or the participant can ask me.
Yeah. So, Emma Asker, can you ask directly to Dr. Wakar? Because your questions still not clear enough for Doctor to answer.
Okay.
Okay, so we are waiting here from other further.
I have a question.
Hello.
Oh,
hello.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, doctor, my question is about if I am writing my own paper. So what do you think? What most of the writers make mistakes in generally structures and flow of the paper?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that our young researchers like us need to understand is the structure of paper, and the structure that I discussed in my session. It should not be like fixed. It should not be considered as stable. Because sometimes what happens when we talk about academic writing and we read academic books on academic writing, we just come up with a fixed structure. There is like a introduction, then we have a problem statement, then we have significance of study, then we have this objective, aim, research question. Like this is narrative flow that we actually follow in our studies. Fine. But if you talk about academic articles in journals, peer-reviewed journals, or if I'm talking about myself as how I wrote my dissertation in PhD, I didn't have a problem statement in my dissertation. I didn't have a significance of the study as a section in my study, in my thesis. Or in many of my papers that I have written, for example, I don't write this research questions and then objectives, like repetition of them. So if there are such questions, they are enough. If there are, for example, objective, that's enough. Sometimes we just write down aim only. The aim is there and that's it. So I think this is something where as writers, as readers, we have to maybe read more and more about different kind of scholars and researchers, how they are framing their study. And particularly, for example, if you're doing qualitative studies, then they are very flexible, and see how conceptual thematic headings are given in the paper other than writing down literature review, writing down maybe conclusion as such, but they bring some more innovative headings in the paper. And this very innovative and creative process, I believe. This is what you can decide on your own by reading more and more, by analyzing the structure and the overall overview of the papers done by the other scholars.
Yeah, thank you, doctor. This is very useful. And I have another question also. I'm doing my master's in chemical engineering.
Okay.
So I have started my lab work and I have to write my own review paper. So first of all, I should focus on review paper, or I should take them both.
I think it's all about the requirement. If you think that you want to write a review paper, most researchers do review papers first, I believe, because a review paper helps them to understand their field in general. So before coming to this particular empirical study or laboratory work or experiment, they try to understand their field. I understand about chemical engineering and the natural sciences. So for them, this review paper is more important first because they want to understand what knowledge has been developed in their field and how it has been synthesized and what are the future gaps, for example. When you read the review papers and when you write the review papers, you would be in a better position to understand the future gaps where you can contribute. And you can suggest a future direction as well. So better to start with the review paper. And I suggested one thing, Prisma guidelines, for example. If you just search Prisma guidelines, it's a very universal guideline for researchers from all disciplines. So Prisma guidelines can always help you to understand the meta-analysis or meta reviews or peer or systematic reviews or scoping review papers. So this can maybe helpful to you.
Thank you so much, doctor. Thank you.
Okay, so Doctor, can you see the chat box? So I think I have some questions there, so it's easier for you to read out.
Okay, I would take a research-related question here. Last one, I have a question about theoretical. Do we need to have a methodology section to clarify how the new theories are found? Because most of the time, this kind of paper does not have methodology section. If this is the case, will the reviewer ask for the methodology to clarify how the theories are found? Yeah, exactly. When you are writing a theoretical, for example, in review papers, in systematic reviews, you follow a methodology. You include a methodology clearly. That's there because you tell how you collected data. But in theoretical papers, you don't need to discuss methodology of the section because it's all about the argument and you come up with a different thematic heading there, sections there. So never at all. You don't need it. Yeah. And then we have beyond interest, what is the relevant and market value? Market value. Are you asking about the market value of applied linguistics as such? It's a very general and open question. I cannot actually specify it.
Yes. Before that, there is a question from Muter. She asks you that, could you please repeat those writing tools name? The name of writing tools to improve academic writing.
Yeah, I can write here. One is Quill Bolt, and other is Word Tune, and then we have this Grammarly. And these are very these are tools which can be used ethically, and editors and the reviewers, like, they will never have a question about, because they are purely language editing tools. They have nothing to do with the content. But yes, recently, like, I came to know that the Quillboard or WordTune or Grammarly, they also have this AI integration there. So if you're using AI integration to create content, that would be unethical, and that would always be detected. So use it only for the sake of language. That would be very safe and very responsible use of these tools. And they have the annual subscription, and you can buy and maybe you can use it as part of your research.
Yeah, right. So anyone, you have any question else? I think time still have 5 minutes at their schedule. So before we finish the section, I want to invite Iram. She is the president of the club. I want her to wrap up and say something. Iram, can you?
Thank you, Bao. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Solar Postgraduate Club Committee, I want to extend our sincerest gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Syed Waqar Ali Shah, for his enlightening and highly informative talk today. Thank you, Waqar, for being here. Your insights on everything from identifying the right journal to navigating the publishing process and upholding ethical research practices have been incredibly valuable today. This session has equipped us all with crucial knowledge that is essential for every early career researcher. We are truly grateful for your time and expertise. And to all our attendees, thank you for your active participation and for making this event a success. Your presence and engagement are what make these sessions so rewarding. We hope you found this talk as beneficial as we did. So we look forward to seeing you at our next event. And thank you once again. And everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, Doctor.